Welcome back to Nate's ClimbCast, the official voice of the communications industry. I'm your host, Brian Bickness, Director of Safety and Education at NATE. We're proud to partner with Danella as a sponsor for ClimbCast. For over 50 years, they've been taking pride in everything they do, utility construction, equipment rentals, and more. Learn about their wireless services today at danella.com. Thanks, Danella, for your partnership. All right, in this episode, we're diving into TATE, which is short for Telecommunications Against Trafficking and Exploitation. Joining me today is Kenny Blakeslee, CEO of Apex Site Solutions. Welcome to the show, Kenny.
Thanks for having me, Brian.
So, Kenny, before we jump into TATE, can you give us a little bit backstory on yourself? How'd you get in the industry? What do you do today?
Yeah, absolutely. I grew up around the industry. Actually, my dad was a tower climber back in the early '90s. Take your kid to work day. I think it was like fourth grade. I actually went out to a job site with my dad. It was a little bit different back then, safety wise, right? So obviously, they didn't put me to work, but I was hanging out in the truck all day and honestly bored out of my mind. Like, this looks like terrible work to me. You know what I mean? And I was scared of heights and everything. I said I would never want to do that. And then when I graduated high school, and I actually worked in the warehouse, the yard for a tower company for one summer. So, I was around it constantly. And I went to the military out of high school. When I got out of the military, I was going to go back to San Diego to go to college. And my dad had just started his own tower construction company and said, "Hey, come work for me for the summer. Put a little money in your pocket. You can stay with me rent free, and then you can go back to school." And I said, "Okay, that sounds good. I'll never climb those towers, but I'll dig trenches all day. I don't care." And he said, "All right, let's do that." And so I never ended up leaving the industry. I never ended up going back to college. I slowly fell in love with it. I slowly got over my fear of heights. I started climbing the towers and getting used to it and kind of falling in love with it, and never left the industry from there. So in 2010, I founded Apex Site Solutions, broke out on my own, and along with my wife. And now here we are 16 years later, almost coming up on our 16-year anniversary exactly of the company. And we've been growing and reshaping ourselves for the future of the industry, and just trying to get 1% better every day and provide opportunity for all the folks within our company and do the best work we possibly can.
Nice. That's awesome. That's interesting. So I kind of have a similar background with my dad, growing up on a farm, but my dad's like, nope, you have to get away from the farm, wanted me to go to college, went to that. But then my brother actually drugged me back into the industry in like 1998, 99, right in there. It's like, you need to come work for me. He said, okay. So, and here we are a few years later, we're still at it. So pretty cool stuff.
It's pretty sticky, it's like the mafia. Just when you think you're out, they draw you right back in, right?
Yeah, right. Exactly. All right. So for listeners that might be hearing about TATE for the first time, what is TATE and how is it created?
Yeah, so TATE is essentially just it's a training. So the initiative, telecommunications against trafficking exploitation, is a training that's no cost to anybody taking it. It's been developed. It's only 30 minutes, and it teaches the telecommunications industry how to spot the signs of human trafficking and then what to do about it. It came about. It was a Valentine's Day, and I went to a wine tasting event with my wife and some friends at a winery. And we were sitting there sipping some wine, and all of a sudden a lady took the microphone and started talking about human trafficking. And I looked around like, what did I get myself into? What's going on here? I thought this was supposed to be a romantic Valentine's Day, right? So initially I was quite turned off by it, to be honest with you, like, oh, what's going on here? But and listening to her story and learning more about it and the charity that the nonprofit that she had founded, it got me interested in getting involved, is the bottom line. And so, the lady that was speaking, her name's Ashley Bryant, and she's the founder of Three Strands Global. And that's a nonprofit that fights human trafficking. And so we talked for a while. We were trying to figure out ways for, me to get involved and to help and everything else. And we were exploring a few things. And then it came up. She said, hey, the local utility here, SMUD, we trained all of their field employees, how to spot the signs of human trafficking and then what to do about it. What do you think about getting your folks trained like that? And I said, that sounds like a great idea. Let's do it. And then it pretty quickly grew. And hang on a second, if we've got our, 100 or so folks, what about the rest of our industry? Like, why not train the rest of the industry? We've got thousands or tens of thousands of telecom workers nationwide. If we could get all those folks trained, what kind of an impact do we have against human trafficking? So that was the evolution of it.
All right, Kenny. So Three Strands originally started, and then Tate was designed for telecommunications. Can you kind of walk through the evolution of what Tate, how it started and what it is today?
Yeah, so I mean, it all started out of that initial conversation with Ashley. And then the next steps, I mean, I picked up the phone once this idea started to grow. I called Jim Tracy. I called Todd Schleck away from Nate, right? And I brought the idea to them, and they backed it immediately and said, absolutely, let us know how we can help. And so it grew from there. We filmed the initial Tate training. Jim and Ontivity and Legacy, they covered the cost of that. They let us use their media room and their media folks and everything else. And then, it kind of took off over the next couple of years. And then we realized we needed to take it to the next level. So that's when Tate 2.0 came in, and we formed an advisory board along the way. Paula Nurnberg from Nate is a part of that. Some other heavy hitters from the industry are a part of that advisory board. And, there's been a lot of folks that have generated or that have donated a lot of time, energy, effort into getting this to where it's at and really moving the needle. So, I was able to get it kickstarted, but it's definitely folks, many more folks beyond me that are truly driving this thing forward into the future. So appreciative of all the folks involved in that.
Yeah, they say it takes a village, right? And that's pretty amazing that there's that many people, and it's a no-brainer that it's a great reason to advocate and to create awareness. So thanks to everyone that for all you do. What's interesting with our industry is we're kind of uniquely positioned in a way to identify some of those situations. We want to expand on that a little bit.
Yeah, I think simply put, it's we're very transient, right? We're all over the place. So our crews are traveling, and they're in a lot of the places where this is going to be happening, right? So as they're traveling around the state, around the country, they're staying in hotels a lot. They're hitting Home Depots. They're hitting gas stations. They're flying sometimes, right? So they're traveling major interstates. Those are all the hot spots where this stuff can be happening. And so, what better eyes and ears to have out there knowing what to look for than the folks that are going to be in the places where this takes place a lot? That, and we're also at elevation where we can get an elevated view on things, right? So,
True.
when you're up on those towers, and sometimes you're just doing a little bit of people watching around you, what's going on out
Yep.
around me? There's plenty of opportunities to see it happening then too. So, what better eyes and
Yeah.
ears to have out there than telecommunications folks?
A lot of apartment complexes and whatnot. You can, yeah, bird's eye view. Yeah, that I never thought of that. Yeah, it's good perspective. Okay,
Absolutely.
so without diving like too deep into training content, or asking workers to become private investigators, what are some of the common warning signs or red flags that workers might encounter during a workday?
Well, you brought up one good point there too, which is, hey, listen, we're not asking anybody to play hero, right? So, in taking the training, they'll learn what they can do about it, and it doesn't involve put themselves at risk or their company at risk, right? There's a hotline you call, but when it comes to the signs, the training goes pretty in depth, and will give you a lot of scenarios of what to look for. But in general, once you're exposed to it, it can become pretty obvious, and you'll probably realize other times you've seen it. But a lot of it comes down to relationship dynamics. If you're out in public and you're seeing a relationship or interactions that seem a little off, whether it's somebody that looks very low confidence, very low self-esteem, fearing authority, not wanting to engage with people, no eye contact, right? And then especially when you see them with someone, maybe there's an age gap, maybe there's a some other sort of oddity about the interactions that's kind of sets off the spidey senses, right? Those are the types of things you'll see. A lack of ID, somebody doesn't have ID, somebody has multiple cell phones, things like that. Those are the types of things that can come out that'll really cause you to look at it a little sideways and say something doesn't seem right here. And then, following on to the next, which is what do you do from there? You're just supposed to call the National Human Trafficking Hotline, right? And that phone number's in the training and everything, right? So once you see those things, all you're going to do is report it. And that doesn't mean like, so say you report it and it turns out there's nothing wrong with that relationship at all. You were wrong. Well, a short investigation will occur. If it turns out everything's fine, no harm, no foul, right? You're letting the authorities take over. But in the instances where there actually is something going on, that once again, you will have made an impact by letting the authorities know that something fishy was going on, and tipping them off to maybe go take a look and investigate that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah. I think, that plays into kind of my next question about a lot of these preconceived notions of what trafficking is. And I think people are a lot of times paint a picture in their head of what it is and what it isn't. And they think that it only happens in a big city, or like this dramatic kidnapping that you see somebody getting pulled out of a van or something like that. Or can you kind of talk about like what are some of the biggest misconceptions about trafficking?
I think you hit on two of them right off the bat, right? Like, number one, we're not talking about the movies here most of the time, right? We're not talking about kidnapping. We're not talking about Liam Neeson chasing down, people that kidnapped his child. Most of the time, the interesting thing about this is most of the time it they know the person that's doing it, right? It's coercion. It's not force. It's not handcuffs. You're not chained up. A lot of times it's that mental control over somebody. It's the coercion. It's the control. That's how this stuff takes place. These traffickers are very good about getting inside the heads of these folks and making them feel, a lot of times you'll almost see a sense of loyalty between the person being trafficked to the trafficker, because they've done such a good job of kind of brainwashing them over time, making them feel dependent upon them, making them feel as if they're doing this for their own good and things like that, right? So, um, quite often, the myths are going to be, hey, it's going to be uh, uh, extremely obvious and extremely physical, and most of the time it's a mental thing. And then, in big cities only, not at all. It's, it's not just sex trafficking. You also have labor trafficking, and you'll see that in agriculture, which is oftentimes in farm towns. But a lot of folks that are maybe underpaid, they're not being paid minimum wages, they're being, controlled or forced to live in substandard conditions. That's where it can happen too. So it absolutely happens in rural areas. And one of the things that caught my attention and really made me want to get involved is you think it's happening somewhere else. You think it's happening in another country or another city, not in my backyard, right? But the story that Ashley shared was, the reason she got involved and formed Three Strands was one of her friend's daughters, who lives in a very affluent community, a small community, a very family oriented community, was hanging out with an older guy. A whole group of friends was. He befriended them. He was hanging out with them for several weeks. And then one day he went to drop everybody off after they were hanging out, and he never dropped her off. And then he sold her into trafficking. And luckily she was rescued after several weeks, right? But we're talking about, that happened in El Dorado Hills, California, which is a very nice community and not the type of place you would ever picture something like that happening. So that opened my eyes to realize, wait a second, this is happening all around me. This is happening near me. That's why I really was like, I do need to get involved here, because if this could happen in our own backyard, it's got to be happening even worse other places, right? So.
Yeah, and you think about it, they're no dummies. The individuals that are doing this, they know that people are probably a little bit more on high alert in bigger cities, and they're trying to get one step ahead, and getting into these communities is exactly what their target is. So yeah, you're spot on with that. So
Yeah.
that's one example. Do you have any other examples, without sharing confidential details, about like within our industry of things that have been red flags that have been put up, or stories to tell at all?
Yeah, actually, I think I can share the details, because he's allowed us to share the story. But Brandon Foster from Vicor has a
Oh,
story
yeah.
where he was at a hotel. He was working on the road, and he thought he heard something through the vent in his bathroom. And, he was thinking to himself, maybe am I imagining that? Is that a TV somewhere? Something along those lines. But, back to the point, his spidey sense went off. So he made the call. And a little while later, he saw somebody being taken out in handcuffs, right? So an example of someone having an impact by just getting a little suspicious, reporting it, letting the authorities take it from there, right? So,
Yeah.
kudos to him. And I'm glad he allowed us to share his story. We can get some specific with that.
No doubt. Proud of Brandon, and thank him for letting us talk about that, because that's when it's real. Otherwise, we're just talking about it. When things actually happen and you can share stories, that makes it real, right? So, yeah, great job, Brandon.
Well, rewarding, right? By taking the action. So,
Oh,
like, you can see it, and then,
yeah,
you got to feel pretty darn good about the
yeah,
impact we make. So hopefully others get to continue to make that impact. And that's one of the things about the new training, is
yeah,
there's a survivor story in there, and that's one of the great, like, when you get to listen to a survivor speak, number one, you hear kind of about like how atrocious it actually is. Number two, you hear how many times she was near people who should have seen what was going on and done something about it, and didn't. I mean, we're talking years here. But then the best part is what you also get to see out of that survivor story is how good she is doing now, right? She was trafficked for years. That could do very serious traumatic damage to somebody. And I'm sure it did, right? But she's been able to come out the other end of that. And you know, she's doing, I mean, she's extremely well spoken. She speaks to Congress, the Senate on these matters. She advises, she's working for Three Strands. So she's really found success by being able to get out of that trafficking situation. So that's the bright side of getting to hear that survivor story is, hey, if we can do something about this and get these folks out of this type of situation, they can have a lot of life success and happiness in front of them, right? So that's a big positive side to it.
Yeah, I think it's one of those scenarios. It's so important just to create awareness with it. You know, I always use the saying, "You don't know what you don't know." And case in point here, if you don't know what to look for, you're gonna be blind to it, and you might miss an opportunity to save somebody's life. Or it's pretty important to get this message out there. Okay, so if you're talking to a company owner or safety director that's listening today, why should they take the training and make that a part of their company's safety and employee program?
To me, it's just a no brainer. It's a very simple sell, right? Like the impact it can have. But bottom line is it's very minimal investment from the employer. We developed it with help from sponsors and people that have donated money. We have volunteers that have volunteered to be involved, and that's also that can keep it at no cost. We don't want to be charging because we want there to be zero excuses for not taking this training. Right? It's only 30 minutes. It's all web based, so you don't have to go to a class or anything like that. And there's no cost to doing it other than the cost of that person sitting down for that 30 minutes to take that training. But then the benefits that can come out of it on the other side are tremendous. That, and you know, the point that I bring up to people oftentimes too is, you know, the younger generation these days, they don't want to just show up for their 8 hours and collect a check. A lot of folks want to feel like they're a part of a company that's more than just building towers, right? Like they want to feel like they're at a company that's doing some good or having some impact. And this is a way to show, you know, our company is dedicated to having an impact and doing good beyond just building out networks, right? So, you know, culturally, it can be a good thing too. But like I said, our entire goal was to make it so there's zero excuses to not do it. So, to me, in having conversations, when I come across folks who know about it and haven't done it, you know, I'm kind of beating them over the head with the facts a little bit. No cost, 30 minutes, you know, get it done, do some good. And there's no risk, right? We're not asking them to be heroes. We're just asking them to call a hotline. So there's zero risk to an employer for having his folks take this training. What we do is, you know, as part of our onboarding, all of our folks are already doing a bunch of training, RF awareness, climb and rescue, MEWP training, all, you know, everything else that we do already. So during that onboarding process, it's a 30-minute video. We have them watch it as part of their onboarding, and it also lets them know a little bit about who we are as a company and what we stand for. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Great time to take that training is not driving, but riding down the road, right? The part of our industry is the sites aren't in our backyards. And so you typically have a commute. Man, great time to instead of being on Facebook or Instagram, hop onto that website. And we'll put a link right here on the video here. And then we'll also put a link in the description that will be available to access the training page from Tate. So we'll get that to you guys. But the other thing that you're doing, you're personally investing some time, effort, and energy into this little celebration that you always have. You know that the donations or the money goes towards Tate. Can you talk a little bit about Brewfest and what you got going on there?
yeah, absolutely. We've been holding an annual Brewfest since 2019 with a little break for COVID. But when we first started it, it was to launch a new division of our company. And then we ended up kind of stumbling into, oh, we can raise some money by doing this fun event, right? And so what do we want to do with that? And so Tate has become the beneficiary. We hold this Brewfest annually. This year it's Thursday, October 1st. So anybody that's listening and wants to get an invitation, once again, no cost, right? So we put it on. We have some very generous sponsors from the industry that help us cover the cost of that thing. We bring out a bunch of breweries. We bring out food trucks. All of our guests get to come at no cost. We have a good time, but we have a good time for a good cause. And so we have a raffle and a silent auction that helps us to raise money during the Brewfest event. And last year we raised over $30,000 to go towards this TATE initiative and helping fight human trafficking. And this year we're looking to get over 35,000. So I've actually wearing the hat on purpose. That's this year's Brewfest hat that'll be handed out to all attendees. I mean, we do it right. It's a fun event. We have a good time. But all while doing it for a good cause. We're trying to blend the two, right? Come out and have a good time, but know that while you're doing that, you're actually making an impact towards human trafficking, and you're helping in that fight. So it's a good way to blend both of those things. So for anybody that's listening that wants to come out and join us on Thursday, October 1st, don't hesitate to reach out. You can email brewfest@apexsitesolutions.com, and we can get you an invite and come join us.
And that's awesome. I appreciate what you guys do there, raising money. Sounds like a good time. Nice.
It's a fun time, and we've been lucky enough that nobody's had too much fun at any of our Brewfest yet too. Everybody does it very responsibly.
Good. That's awesome. Yeah, I'll have to make it out there one of these years for sure.
Hopefully, yeah.
All right, so that wraps things up for us. Kenny, we appreciate you and what TATE does. Thanks again for joining us.
Absolutely. Thanks to Nate. Thanks to you. Thanks for shining a light on this. Nate's given a ton of support to TATE throughout. And Nate does a lot of great things for our industry. I love this ClimbCast. So thank you, Brian. And thanks to all of Nate.
Yeah, absolutely. And to our listeners, be sure to visit natehome.com for safety resources, industry updates, and ways to get involved. I'm Brian Bickness, and this has been ClimbCast. Be safe, stay connected, and keep climbing.